hovered above me. Best friend to 23. I heard the heavens crying above me. They gained an angel, I lost a friend. I felt like dying again and again. I went through hell, stared at death, but I keep fighting with each living breath. I saw no way out from where I stood. Felt like the fire had burned me through. Now you're gone, I'm alone. I guess it's time to get better. Through the pain, I will go alone. If I fall, break my bones, I will scream even louder. 'Cause I'm not dying alone. I lost my best friend. Lost my best friend to 23. She left her body and hovered above me. I saw no shadow, I looked around, searched every building and home that I found. I saw no shadow, but felt the glow. The warmth inside me, it kept me afloat. It felt like heaven that found my bones and gave me comfort when I feel alone. Now you're gone, I'm alone. I guess it's time to get better. Through the pain, I will go alone. If I fall, break my bones, I will scream even louder. 'Cause I'm not dying alone. I lost my best friend to 23. She left her body and hovered above me. My best friend to 23. I heard the heavens crying above me. They gained an angel, I lost a friend. I felt like dying again and again. I went through hell, stared at death, but I keep fighting with each living breath. I saw no way out from where I stood. Felt like the fire had burned me through. Now you're gone, I'm alone. I guess it's time to get better. Through the pain, I will go alone. If I fall, break my bones, I will scream even louder. 'Cause I'm not.
It's showing me. Hello, guys. You guys can all see me now. If you can hear me, let us know in the chat. Because, yeah, we're going to be starting this soon. We're really excited to announce our new staff member. And on top of that, have this episode of HP for Gamers, where we talk about everything as it relates to our health and performance. And we're blessed today to bring on this new staff member who has a background in clinical research, undergraduate degree in neurobiology, and is currently an instructor and performance dietitian for UCLA. And he spearheaded the development of a sports nutrition program on campus and also completed a thesis project examining cognitive supplements in League of Legends athletes that we're going to dig into a little bit. And he has also some experience working with elite athletes, multiple Olympians, but is really passionate about bringing his expertise to help gamers optimize their diet so they can live well and game well. So let's see. Who is it? Casey Thomas! We have Casey Thomas here. Welcome. Welcome. Everyone, if you're in the chat, you should be clapping. It's just... Yep. Send your clap emojis because Casey is here. He's here. But welcome, Casey. Thanks for joining me on here today. And please, if you don't mind, just kind of introducing yourself and sharing a little bit about yourself.
Absolutely. No, thank you so much for that warm welcome and that amazing introduction. I don't think I've ever been hyped up that much before. But I'm really excited to be here. So my name's Casey. I am a performance dietitian, and a little bit about me. I consider myself a nutrition guinea pig through and through. And that's the thing about nutrition that always fascinated me, was just that it has this extremely low barrier to entry. You don't have, in physics, you have to spend like a few $1 billion to go buy a particle accelerator. In nutrition, you don't have to do that. You can run to the grocery store, buy some vegetables, and try it out yourself and see if this works for you. So I literally have tried every single diet, every single supplement, and every single strategy you can think of, and I've done it to a T. My doctors hate me because I get blood work before and after. Wow. But I keep all my notes of everything, how I'm doing with all that stuff. But I guess more generally, I did grow up gaming. My first console was the original Nintendo. Was playing Mario on that. Was playing Zelda on that. Played Smash, the first one when that came out. Nintendo 64 was awesome. GameCube was awesome.
Yes.
RuneScape. Was playing RuneScape.
Oh, really? That's awesome. So you know about the party hats.
Oh, yeah.
Good.
Oh, yeah.
Good. That is awesome. And it's funny because that you say that you're a guinea pig, because I've actually done a lot of that myself for a lot of nootropics, and we'll probably get into some of the discussion around that. But I remember buying a capsule maker, and I bought the ingredients separately, measured and teared it out. I have a little device I use. It's just like I was back in biochem lab. I would set everything up, pour it in, and I remember making the capsules to test pre and post test using like a cognitive battery test online. I mean, it didn't really reveal anything because I didn't create enough capsules to last for probably the duration that was necessary. I did it for a month, but I think in some of the studies with some of the things that I used, it really required me to use it for like 12 months. But it took so much effort to make the capsules that I was like, I can't. This is too much. But I've done it many times. It's fun.
That's amazing. Do you still have it?
Yeah, I still have the capsule maker. So,
we're going to make some stuff.
Good. Let's do it. Let's make some great gamer nootropics. But why don't we just start? Because I feel that nutrition is a really undervalued part of gaming performance and just gaming in general. So I think we can start there. And what do you think are the things gamers need to know about nutrition in esports or as gamers?
I think probably the number one thing is that they just need to care about nutrition. They need to learn that nutrition is something that can not only protect their health, but also improve their performance. A lot of, young, very high level elite esports players, they're succeeding despite their diet and not because of it. And we see this trend is pretty common with other types of athletes as well, like in traditional sports. They're succeeding despite their diet, not because of it. They're very overconfident. They think that they're at a high level. If what they're doing was good enough to get where they are, why do they need to change? But that's a logical fallacy, right? If you had taken care of things, if you had better training, better whatever it was, you could probably be years ahead of where you were at. What you were doing is not necessarily optimal. It's just what you did to get where you are currently. So I really think that just developing a care about nutrition and seeing it as something that's really part of your life. Everybody has to eat for the rest of their life. Okay, so it's a big part of your life, as much as people don't like to admit. But I guess the other really important aspect is just that poor nutrition will catch up with anyone. So classic esports, classic gamers, they tend to be a little bit on the younger side. I have seen 80-year-old gamers, which is awesome, but typically they're on the younger side, right? And they think that they're immune to poor nutrition habits. But poor nutrition habits will catch up with anybody. It really does break my heart when I see some of these young esports athletes who are retiring at a young age, like Uzi in League of Legends, for example. He cited poor nutrition as one of the main reasons for his retirement. Right. So it will literally catch up with you, even if you're 20-something years old. So don't neglect it. Learn that it can be not only, it's not a chore, it's a part of your life, and it can be used strategically to enhance performance, which I think a lot of people also neglect.
Yeah, I think it's funny that you talk about Uzi because a lot of the times when we highlight those stories where professional esports athletes retire, it might be because of injury. And, the injury was a component in his retirement, but he also cited the potential for, diabetes. And we actually had this big review of all of the resources and things that were available, I guess, through media sources about his symptoms so that we could better identify, hey, did he really need to retire? And I think there have been recent even videos of him, stating the possibility of him returning, right? Because I think he's realized, and I'm hoping many more gamers and people that are, or just gamers in general, realize that you can, with the appropriate nutrition and appropriate program for managing your health, get back to playing, even if you get to a point where you are maybe feeling like you can't, or feeling like you're getting a lot of pain while you're gaming. So I think it's interesting that you brought that up, and I really like what you said, right? Despite the nutrition, not because of it. I think that's a really great phrase. I think a lot of people need to realize that, what you eat, or you are what you eat. How everything that you consume influences every part of how you function, and so taking care of that should be one of our first few thoughts as we're trying to improve ourselves as gamers.
Well, one thing about that is just like your cells are constantly replicating themselves. you're sitting in a brand new body something like once every 7 years. Like every single cell in your body will have at least undergone one round of replication. And a lot of people, they input trash, and that's the building blocks for their body. Literally, you are what you eat. You become, the output of the food that you eat. And people input trash and expect this output of like high performance, machine. And that's not how it works.
Exactly, right? 8 cans of Coke plus 7 bags of Sour Patch Kids plus gaming does not equal optimal gamer, right? I think hopefully you guys can appreciate that equation. But maybe what can gamers start with that might be able to help them create a better end version of that equation? What would you recommend for someone that wants to get started and maybe looking to optimize their nutrition?
Yeah, there's a lot of ways that you could really start, but I think the number one thing is just that you know your situation better than anyone, right? Like you know where you are at in your life, you know what medical conditions you have, you know what medical history you have, you know your food allergies, you know your budget, you know your food preferences, you know all these things. And you need to do something that is first and foremost realistic for your situation. If it is not realistic for your situation and you're going to fall off the wagon in 10 days, who cares, right? If it was like the best program that, some pro gamer was using or whatever it was. You need to find something that you can actually do. So that's the number one thing is like, what is realistic for your current situation? But then, we start looking at some fundamental things if you do have something that you can do, which is, have you seen a piece of broccoli in a year? Are you eating mostly whole foods? You can't out supplement a bad diet, unfortunately. I would be quickly out of a job if you could, which would be awesome because I would love to eat, fried chicken and candy bars all day and then pop a multi and call it a day. But that's unfortunately not how our bodies work. So, mostly whole foods, those kind of things, drinking enough adequate fluid, relative balance with each of the food components. Okay. A lot of diets and fads and trends, they needlessly restrict an entire food group. And almost every single food group has something to offer. The longest lived populations, the people with, lowest incidence of things like Alzheimer's disease and all this kind of stuff, they have very diverse diets. Okay. They don't lock themselves into, I'm doing like a no protein, no carbohydrate, only eating plants or whatever kind of diet. Like they don't do those kind of things. They tend to have a very broad, very diverse diet, and they're getting the benefits of everything without the detriments of any specific one. So, get your fundamentals, get your basics dialed in, make sure it's something you can actually do. And that's going to get you, real talk, it's unsexy, but that's probably going to get you like 70, 80% of the way there. And then only once you have those boxes checked, then you can start looking at some higher level nutrition strategies, nutrient partitioning, timing, supplements, all that kind of good stuff.
I love how you approach that, right? The number one thing we always have to realize is we need to start from where you are at, right? One recommendation does not fit all, right? One size does not ever fit all. We have to choose the program that you stick with and then make small changes so that we are gradually helping you build positive behavior change. That is always, I think, the goal for any, hopefully, support professional or healthcare professional working with an individual. And I just love that you say, hey, we need to build this base and foundation, and then we can really look to optimize and get you that extra few percentage of I guess, benefit for performance and cognitive function. So I'm hoping that everyone that listens really took that in, because I think the focus is always, well, then how can I take caffeine? How can I take these performance enhancing supplements to help me aim better or increase my reaction time? Whereas a lot of the times it could just be, hey, well, maybe I should eat a little more broccoli. Like you said, maybe I should eat a little more, have a few more servings of fruit. So I love that. And maybe we can shift the discussion to misconceptions about nutrition, because I feel that a lot of the times when I do speak with gamers about their diet, they are mentioning things that I have to help them maybe re-understand or better conceptualize. So what do you feel like are common misconceptions that gamers have about nutrition and even performance optimization in nutrition?
Sure. I think there's several, but I think the biggest one stems from this old school belief, which harkens back literally to like the Dark Ages, which is the idea of this mind-body split, that your mind is different from your body. And that is simply not true. Your brain is in your body, and it is part of your body. And whatever you eat influences your brain just as much as it influences your muscle tissue. People have that obvious connection in their head. They're like, oh, I'm going to eat protein, going to get bigger muscles. It's like, okay, but your brain is actually using quite a bit of resources as well. And it's using those, and it has unique fuel requirements, and it has unique nutritional needs. And those needs need to be met if you care anything about optimal brain performance. A lot of people say the brain is static, right? They're like, oh, the amount of neurons you have in your brain is the same throughout the lifespan. That's not true. Okay. There are different areas of the brain where neurons are still growing and replicating. There is also still growth and development of your existing neurons, in addition to more neurons in those certain areas. But there are other cell types in the brain. Okay, your brain is not just a collection of neurons. There's a bunch of support cells in there. There was a historical story, which is kind of interesting. Albert Einstein, they took his brain, they froze it, they sliced it up into a bunch of tiny pieces, and they sent a section of his brain out to the top universities and top researchers in the world. And they're like, let's see if you guys can figure out, what made Albert Einstein, the genius that he was. And so they're looking, they're digging around, they're trying to figure out what is it, all these researchers, first one to figure it out is the big winner. And what they found was no difference in his neuronal structure compared to anyone else. But what was different was he had a higher concentration of these support cells, these astrocytes, these glial cells, and these kind of things. And those are undergoing changes all the time, and those make sure that the neurons are doing what they need to be doing. So those guys need a lot of care. Your neurons need a lot of care. Everything in your brain needs a lot of care. Not only that, but a lot of esports players are also younger, and their brain is just undergoing massive development until at least 25 years old. Okay, your brain is still growing, maturing. You have to input the right building blocks if you want your brain to, be built of the best stuff, right? You can't input trash and expect an output of amazing. So I think that's probably what I would say is the biggest misconception with nutrition and gamers.
Awesome. Yeah, I didn't know that story, but it makes sense, right? We need those glial cells and astrocytes to have better neuronal function or better brain or cognitive function. I think that mind-body connection is often definitely missed when we talk and think about nutrition. So I love that you brought that up. I do want to shift the focus, and actually I think that's a good transition as we talk a little bit about the key sources of energy for our cognitive function. And we were talking a little bit about this before we started, but I'm really excited about the potential use of creatine in the world of esports, and maybe just to highlight a little bit about what it is, and then we can get into the discussion of why you think it might be helpful for esports athletes.
Yeah, absolutely. So creatine, everybody in the fitness world has probably heard of creatine. There are some mixed opinions about it, but typically you see it in the bodybuilding shops or the bodybuilding websites, and they're like, oh, creatine helps you build muscles, all this kind of stuff. And I don't want to talk about creatine for that. I want to talk about creatine for the brain specifically. But before I do, I feel like I need to address a couple of things about creatine, which is first, it's completely safe. It's probably one of the safest supplements that exists. There were some initial studies that were flawed. Just know that all true randomized controlled trials have found no health risk to taking creatine properly with doses literally like 10x what I might recommend to you. Okay, so they have studies with children taking mega doses of this stuff for years with no issues. You as an adult can take 1/10 of that dose and be totally fine. But your body is continually making creatine all the time already. And you are naturally eating creatine quite regularly whenever you are eating animal flesh products. It is not some synthetic chemical that was made. Okay, this is a natural product. This is part of our bodies. Everybody has this in it. what you see is that in normal individuals with normal diets, they're sitting at about like 60 to 80% capacity with their creatine stores, something like that. And that usually depends on how much you're eating, how active you are, any kind of clinical conditions, your age, all these kind of things. But about 60 to 80% capacity. All creatine supplementation does is top off your creatine stores. Okay, that's it. Similar to how a carb load protocol will naturally top off your carb stores. Okay, it's a very similar analogy. Some people will probably have heard that the brain relies exclusively on carbohydrate as a fuel source. And that's not entirely true. Okay, with the rage of the ketogenic diets, ketones are definitely a backup fuel for the brain. They are not its preferred fuel source. You could be on keto for 20 years, and then the second you have a piece of bread, your brain's going to be like, please give me that glucose. I desperately want it. Your brain doesn't keto adapt. The ketones are an alternate fuel source for the brain. But that's not what I want to talk about either. Your brain actually relies on ATP for fuel, which is adenosine triphosphate. And it gets that mainly from stored carbohydrates. But it also relies on creatine for fuel, which actually relies on it quite a bit. Creatine in the body comes in the form of creatine phosphate. And so when you use an ATP, and just as like a little spoiler, your brain is using ATP all the time. Literally, if you want to think a thought, if you want to memorize something, if you want to coordinate any action in your body, your brain is using energy, and that energy is coming from ATP. Okay? So anytime you use ATP for anything your brain is doing, which is a lot, you pop off a phosphate, and it becomes adenosine diphosphate instead of adenosine triphosphate. And to recycle it, creatine phosphate is sitting nearby, and it donates its phosphate group to remake that ATP molecule. So you're able to quickly resynthesize these ATPs. And in this way, creatine phosphate acts as an immediate energy reserve for your brain. And so any action in your brain takes energy, comes from ATP. Now you have a bigger energy reserve because you have this creatine phosphate in there. And when you supplement with creatine, you're increasing the storage capacity of that energy system. So anytime you have a heavy cognitive load, that is going to tax your brain's energy systems. Okay, so if you're doing scrims, if you're doing long practices, if you are just not sleeping enough, all this stuff, creatine helps you delay mental fatigue longer because you have more energy reserves. It's also been shown to truly enhance cognitive performance as well as rescue it under these like stressful situations, under these sleep deprived situations. There was a research study with college students who were prepping for like a really big math examination. And they took creatine for 5 days leading up to the exam. They had better blood flow and also less mental fog than the people who were not taking creatine. It's also been shown to enhance hand-eye coordination, visual accuracy, short-term memory, global intelligence, reasoning. Hopefully gamers resonate with at least one of those metrics, but those all sound pretty awesome to me for pretty much everything. Exactly. We have suggestive evidence for things like working memory, for processing speed. It also has been demonstrated to improve mood and help out with certain psychological conditions like depression. And in particular, for some reason, creatine seems to be especially beneficial for females who are taking antidepressant medications. And it just makes you feel better. People on creatine report better overall mood and well-being, which is awesome. And if that all wasn't enough, did I also mention it helps you build muscle? Okay. So creatine is awesome.
Yeah. So the summary, creatine is awesome. It helps with a wide range of cognitive and physical function. Memory, mental fatigue, reaction time, motor coordination, psychomotor tasks, everything, memory, IQ scores. I'm just reading this off, and I'll link this in the actual chat if you guys want to check this out. But this is a study that kind of highlights a lot of those potential benefits. I think it also shows that it increases oxygen utilization. So we need more oxygen for our brain to function. But as you can see, I think there's a lot of potential for the use of creatine in gaming specifically. And just remember, it's after we've already established a nice solid foundation for our diet that it can we can really maximize its benefits. So, I mean, that's super exciting to me. How would you suggest anyone that might be interested in starting this to dose it or take it?
Sure. I think the first thing is I'm a fan of powder formulations over pill formulations. Typically, the pill form of creatine is like 1 gram, and a usual starting dose for creatine is about 5 grams per day. So, I don't like popping extra pills if I don't have to. And 5 pills is just a lot. So I would recommend just a powder form. That's about a teaspoon for you guys. As far as exact formulations go, the most well-researched one is creatine monohydrate. There's a lot of different formulations out there, and it's very, very rare where the cheapest one is also the safest and most well-researched. So creatine monohydrate is probably the way to go. We have all of the data in that specific formulation, and all of the things that I said where it boosts, those were using creatine monohydrate specifically. So we have less data in other formulations. Some of these other special formulations, which honestly cost a lot more money, they, maybe, I don't know for sure definitively yet, but maybe one of them has been able to show that it will, say, enhance absorption speeds or something like that. Like that's a pretty typical claim. But your creatine stores are going to be topped off after about 2 to 4 weeks of supplementation with the creatine monohydrate. So if they're topped at like 100% and you're just like continually keeping it topped off, who cares if the other one is absorbed a little better? Doesn't really do anything extra for you. So really, there's no reason not to get creatine monohydrate in my mind right now until I see some convincing evidence otherwise. But I would start with 5 grams per day. There is some evidence that more creatine is needed to cross the blood-brain barrier and to get to your brain creatine stores. So if you are a non-responder to 5 grams per day, you can very safely go up to about 10 grams per day. And then you can kind of go from there. But I would start with the 5 grams, see how you do, actually take some measurements, wait a few weeks, right? 2 to 4 weeks, give it at least 3 weeks, measure, see if you have improvements. If you don't, okay, let's go up to 10 grams. Don't just, start at 10, don't even, a lot of people will hear this and be like, I'm going to start at 50 grams. It's like, that's not what I said at all, actually. So just make sure that you're being smart with it. It is very safe, but I would just start with 5 grams per day, and that should be good.
Got it. And yeah, I think that's a really good place to start for most people. Otherwise, well, actually, yeah, I think that's a really good place for everyone to start. Where would you, or what would you ask people to utilize to test their cognitive function or changes in their cognitive function?
I think you should find the metric that you care about the most. And that's something that excites me about esports, is that different genres have different physiological things that they might care about. So in FPS, you might care about shooting accuracy, something like that, right? Or maybe spatial memory. Like you want to remember where that guy was that you saw running around the corner. You care about these things. But this is very different than like an RTS strategy game where like APM is very important, right? You need to have like quick fingers. They're very different from a MOBA, very different than a game like chess. Okay, so different sports have very unique mental metrics that they care about. So I would find one that you care about and then go from there. Maybe it's last hitting in league, maybe it's shooting accuracy, maybe it's reaction speed. It could be literally anything, but it's whatever you care about. And what I would recommend is that you start with whatever you feel is your weak link in the chain. So if you are, historically, like in some games, they might put like a person who is not very quick on like the shot calling role. Okay, they're not in the very mechanically demanding role. They're like a shot caller because they can think and they can do those things. That's a different mental process. But maybe you want to transition into someone who has a lot of APM. So maybe you're looking for improvements in reaction speed or hand-eye coordination. So whatever it is that you want to go for, that's what I would measure. And if it's not practically beneficial to you, then why are you bothering with the supplement to begin with?
Exactly. And I think something that we need to emphasize is you want to make sure that when you are testing something, that you're not changing too many things at once, right? You're not doing a training program plus taking creatine plus exercising plus sleeping 2 more hours. You want to make sure you're isolating the use and seeing if that actually creates a change. So just like what Casey said, you want to find the metric that is most relevant to you and use based on whatever game it might be, create a self-test for yourself. And you can either use AimLab, you can use, and let's say for League, how quickly it takes for you to get to a certain amount of CS. Create a certain metric that makes the most sense for the game that you play, and then see how you respond over the course of the 3 to 4 weeks or even longer. But realize that you don't want to change too many things at once, because that can confound or affect the results and really affect the understanding of it, if it will be beneficial for you or not. So just want to make sure that you guys standardize that, keep everything else more or less stable while you are intaking the creatine. Moving on though, I do want to touch a little bit about hydration, because a lot of the times in my experience, gamers are underhydrated, and don't really know how to actually implement getting more water, as well as understanding how much they really need. So are there or what do you think gamers need to know about hydration, and what are some maybe simple recommendations you can make?
Sure. Yeah, hydration is honestly probably the quickest thing to see results with nutrition that you can make as far as enhancing your gaming performance. And I'll walk you through that a little bit. So most people are taught, in school that their body is like 60% water, or 2/3 water or something like that. But the brain is actually as much as 75% water. So the brain is much more water than the rest of your body. So what that means is anytime you're marginally dehydrated, your brain is feeling that much more pronounced. Okay, your brain is seeing a much bigger detriment than the rest of your body. And so you will very quickly see cognitive impairments before you will see physical impairments due to dehydration. And under a brain scan, when they look at people who are dehydrated, they put you under a brain scan, they will their brains will look like that of an Alzheimer's disease brain. So Alzheimer's disease, the pathology of it, you're eating all the outside and it like kind of shrinks a little bit. But a dehydrated brain shrinks similarly. So it looks almost indistinguishable. You can't tell the difference, but like it mimics the effects of Alzheimer's disease. And the worst part about it is that because you are locked into your own brain, you are locked into your own perceptions, you don't really notice that you are dehydrated, okay? You have no way to know that you are being impaired unless you are actually, doing like a little test on yourself or something like that. But it's kind of like those people who, they get used to maybe no sleep for a long period of time. They're like, oh, I'm fine on 5 hours a night, I'm good. And then they go like a weekend where they start sleeping in, and then they're like, oh my God, I feel amazing. I'm like king, I'm on top of the world. And you don't notice it until, you got it. So a lot of people, a lot of gamers are chronically dehydrated, I would argue. And they should be looking to improve this, because this can take effects over 24 hours. You can see performance improvements, which is quite amazing. So if you're looking for like a quick, what can I do so that way I'm better tomorrow, hydration is the thing that you want to look at. And I know I was drinking water. That was one of the things that I was it's like a key point that I tell a lot of athletes is that hydration for today started yesterday, and hydration for tomorrow starts today. If you're waiting for thirst to guide you, which a lot of people do, it is too late. So let's say you're in championship game, right? And you say you get thirsty in the game, and thirst is an indicator that you are already dehydrated. And if you are already dehydrated, you are already playing at not your peak performance. Okay, that sucks. And so now you're thirsty, you drink some water. You have to wait for that water to be digested, travel through the intestines, get absorbed, enter the blood, move from the blood to the tissue it needs to get to, go to the brain, then enter the specific areas that were like crying for it. And that whole process takes time. So by the time the water gets where it needs to restore performance, your performance has been compromised that entire time. Okay? So you need to have a plan in place. A pro would say, I don't get thirsty, because they're drinking enough fluid to never get thirsty. Mm-hmm. If you're looking for like maybe some general numbers, a good baseline that I like to start with is just half your body weight in fluid ounces. So like if you weigh 200 pounds, 100 fluid ounces would be like a good starting point. But you also need to add in the fluid losses from any kind of physical activity or stress, or it's just really hot outside, that kind of stuff. There are a lot more complicated strategies that you can follow, but those are the basics, I would say.
Got it. So I think in terms of protocols, what we can maybe do, because I know a lot of the times when we speak about hydration, our urine is sort of referenced as a feedback or helping us understand how hydrated we are. So maybe we can create a protocol to help them sort of better understand day to day, are you staying hydrated? And maybe is it in the morning they can check and say like, hey, when you have your morning, when you pee in the morning, you can check and see if you're hydrated or not. And that can give you an indicator of your daily intake of water. Is it enough based on the color of your urine? And then you can then make a daily change and decision. Oh, well, I probably need to have a little more. Using the body weight divided by 2 as sort of this general guideline, right? Of based on your activity levels, based on what you're doing, am I getting enough water?
Yeah, and that's a good way to do it too. I definitely have been known to print out a bunch of copies of like urine color charts and just throw them up in all the bathrooms in the facilities that I've been working in, so people can constantly, they're like, "What is that?" And then they're like, "Oh, well, let me take a look." But one of the potential issues with the urine color is that your urine color can change due to taking like multivitamins and B vitamins and things like that, and that will color them artificially yellow. So you could be very well hydrated, but your urine's not going to show it. So that can be a confounder. If you have, I do this with some protein sometimes. Is like we'll do a urine specific gravity test before practices or before games, and coach will literally say you're not playing if you're below a certain threshold of hydration. So you can do some more specific tests. You can do urine tests to actually measure exactly, how hydrated they are. And part of that is like a risk factor too, right? Like if they undergo a lot of stress, and this applies mentally as well, a lot of mental stress can do this, and you are severely dehydrated, you can pass out, you can have some complications that arise from that. So you definitely don't want to be severely dehydrated. And then the other issue, which I'm seeing more of an uptick lately, is these people who want to overhydrate. Some people who are just overly conscious about their health. They feel like, I'm going to drink like 2 gallons of water a day or something. If your urine is crystal clear white and it looks like water on the way out, that is too hydrated. Okay, it should be a nice light yellow. Don't be overhydrated. That can cause hyponatremia. That can similarly cause problems for you. What is it they say, that toxicity is a function of dose? Like you can turn anything bad if you drink enough of it or have enough of it. So be careful on that side too. But most people, I would say most gamers playing the numbers game here tend to be a little chronically dehydrated. Underhydrated. Sorry.
Right.
Underhydrated.
No worries. Yeah. So I think we need to repeat that several times. Gamers are chronically dehydrated or gamers are underhydrated. Basically, you guys don't drink enough water, and this has been consistent year to year when I do a preseason, midseason, postseason assessment of professional esports teams. Maybe 50% in the beginning are underhydrated, and that's a direct thing that, as Casey said, we can intervene with and help to improve performance. And sometimes that dips, right? Because a lot of the times, maybe due to the context of the situation within the season, maybe they aren't doing as well. They want to play more. Oftentimes, some of these positive habits will be lost. So you need to establish hydration as this really foundational habit, just like everything we preach: sleep, exercise, now a lot more nutrition and hydration. All of these basic foundational habits are crucial for you guys to just function at a baseline, and then from there you can really look into optimizing further. And so along those same lines, what are some considerations that gamers can have to maybe additionally improve their mental performance with their nutrition?
Sure. And one other just like quick point about hydration, just because it's really fun and I want to mention it, is I don't believe this is strictly a function of actual hydration status, but there was a study that showed that people who are drinking water during an exam score like a full letter grade higher than those who don't. which I think is pretty cool and telling. So there you go.
So everyone, grab a water bottle before you're doing any cognitively demanding activity. Just drink it, and you'll notice that you'll do better in school. There we go.
Absolutely. So yeah, I mean, okay, so just some basic nutrition stuff for performance, right? So the fundamentals are the fundamentals for a reason. You really need to make sure that you are getting those dialed in and you have those down pat. Those should be habits. Those should just be the norm and the standard. Okay. I'm a big fan of the 90-10 rule, though, which is just 90% of the time you should be, pretty on point, and 10% of the time you can relax. And what that means is, if you do the math and you're eating 3 meals a day, that about 2 meals out of the week you can have fun. So most of the time that's like a Friday, Saturday night, you go out and you have some fun. But typically what happens is if people go too strict for too long, they tend to fall off the wagon and then say screw it, and then everything goes out the door. And so you want to be making steady progress in the right direction. It doesn't matter how big that step is, right? Like as long, take the smallest step you can, as long as it's in the right direction, and then you're going to end up where you want to go. So as far as some specific nutrition strategies, your brain's primary fuel source is carbohydrate. And I have seen, some mixed results. People sometimes claim that on ketogenic diets, they will enhance their brain performance. But given what we know physiologically, that the carbs are the preferred fuel source for the brain, usually the brain doesn't do something for a stupid reason. We believe that carbs are an important part of normal brain functioning. And the people, in the literature, the data is split, where some people see benefits, some people see no change, and some people see a worsening in effects when they go on a ketogenic diet. Mm-hmm. And of the people who see improvements in brain function on a ketogenic diet, when I took a look at most of those studies, what I was noticing is that there was a confounding variable, which was they were comparing it to the standard American diet, which is a big issue in nutrition these days. And I could put dirt up against the standard American diet and it would win. Okay, the standard American diet is trash. And when you have that as a control group, literally everything looks amazing.
Yeah.
So that's a huge, huge, huge issue in nutrition literature, which is you have to actually look at that. And so the people who do the ketogenic diet, who see mental improvements, what they're doing is they're going from trash to I'm suddenly caring about my health. And so they start eating more plants, they start eating right, they're losing weight, they're having all these other things that are very strongly linked with improvements in cognitive performance. And so I believe that that is the main reason why when you go on a ketogenic diet, some people might see an improvement, is because they're coming from trash. So,
interesting.
Outside of that, though, a good balanced diet, you should be eating mostly whole foods. Okay, there are a whole suite of these things called phytonutrients, which are found in plant products, and they do all sorts of wonderful, amazing things for the brain. For example, blueberries have been shown to enhance brain blood flow. That's awesome. I like brain blood flow. I want my brain to be functioning very well, and you get all sorts of benefits from eating these plant products. So eating mostly whole foods, minimizing the processed foods, that will get you a long way. Like that will get you a really, really long way. The other thing which is really important is simply being aware of your body. And what I mean by that is, let's say you're like, hey man, I want to bulk up, I want to put on 20 pounds of muscle, I want to gain weight. And we check your scale weight reading in a month, and you haven't gained 20 pounds of muscle, you've actually lost 20 pounds. That is a very big disconnect, right? Like you thought you were trying to gain weight, you tried to gain weight, and something wrong happened. So you went in the opposite direction. And so you should be continually, in my mind, you should be doing little check-ins with yourself. You should know what your body's doing, and you should be eating in agreement with what your goals are and what you want to be doing. And that will help out with your mental state. That will certainly improve your performance if you're trying to move in a healthy direction. Being at an overall healthy body weight has also been shown to help out with global cognitive function. Excessive adipose tissue has been shown to decrease this. So getting at a healthy body weight is, again, important. there are high-level strategies which you can look to implement. I mean, I could talk about a million and one of them, but I think the punchline would be try to talk to someone like myself and see if they can develop some higher-level strategy for you as an individual. Because, like we said earlier, just because it works for someone else doesn't mean it's going to work for you.
Exactly.
And cookie-cutter programs, like, I'm sorry, if I gave 100 people a cookie-cutter program, I'd be lucky if like 30 of them responded how I expected them to. Okay, so try to get something a little bit more personal to you and your situation.
Again, I love the approach there. I think it is establishing and identifying all these things, maybe outside of even just consuming foods, but when we are consuming foods, whole foods, making sure we take care of the primary nutrition our brain works on, which is glucose or carbohydrates. And then if you want those added benefits, work with Casey, work with the performance dietitian at 1HP, because he's going to help you optimize your cognitive function. I think we have quite a few other topics that I definitely want to get into, but I also wanted to leave some time for questions in the chat, and there were a few questions. So in the next discussion that Casey and I will have, we'll probably talk a little bit more about his research, maybe some advanced nutritional considerations like caffeine, like some of the strategies he's discussed or highlighted in that last response. But before we get to the questions, I wanted to ask, what are some of the things you look forward to doing, with 1HP and in the world of esports?
Yeah, I think the thing that most excites me about joining up with you guys is I love interdisciplinary approaches. I come from a space where that is something that we really treasure and value, and I think there's so much to be gained from your knowledge, from everybody else's knowledge on the team. I love when I can communicate with the team physician. I love when I can talk to sports medicine. I love when I can talk to, the PT. I love when I can talk to the strength coach, the skill coach. Every single day. I love doing that because I can gain valuable insight into what they're doing. And frequently, what I like to do is I like to take, the coach's game plan or the PT's game plan or whatever it is, and they have, a plan. And then what I can do is I can overlay a nutrition plan with what they're doing. And when you do that, you get a lot more bang for your buck in terms of your sessions that you're doing. So if you're doing a prehab, a rehab session, anything like that, I can do nutrition strategies. I can give you nutrition stuff to take before, after, during, what have you. And it's going to make it be a lot more effective, and it's going to speed up your process of recovery or optimize your performance. So I love just chance to interact with you guys, see what your protocols are, and see what I can do to build on that and enhance that. I don't think that it's ever an either or situation. You need everybody. Everybody needs to be there. Everybody, the support staff, they're all important and they all play important roles. But we can definitely be synergistic and help each other out. And so that's probably what excites me the most, is just being able to see what you guys are already doing and try to add on to that, add extra value.
Right.
I have a million ideas about protocols that could help esports athletes, though. The research is so scarce as far as nutrition goes. If anybody wants to be a guinea pig for fun nutrition protocols, let me know. I'll get you hooked up. Don't worry, because I have a lot of ideas about timing strategies, fueling strategies, different protocols, and testing. It's just a really exciting time as far as nutrition goes because we have no data. We're pulling from other cognitive realms like baseball with reaction speed, hand-eye coordination, NASCAR, chess, academics, but there's very little stuff in actual esports, and so that's really exciting to me.
Absolutely, and I feel that the discussion of interdisciplinary teams needs to be highlighted or underscored, because a lot of the times in esports right now, when support staff is utilized, it's sort of this single perspective view on how a team can be supported or how it can provide benefit for the team without incorporating the discussion or communication channel with some of the other staff members, so whether it be the coach or the PT or the sports psych. And a lot of these orgs are just hiring a sports psych or hiring a PT or hiring a strength coach and just having him do one-off discussions or meetings with the players without creating this true interdisciplinary team that can create a holistic or comprehensive plan that will more or less optimize their team's performance and health more quickly than sort of applying this single dimensional approach that hopefully will shift as we continue to work with professional organizations, and hopefully bring some more awareness to how organizations as well as even franchise leagues can better manage the support staff side of esports. So we did have a few questions, like I said, from our stream. From one, Kim said, Mr. Casey Thomas, what do you think about the carnivore diet? I've been on it for about a year and haven't ever felt better. It also solved a lot of health issues for me and some of my friends as well. I think this is a really interesting question, so I really would love to hear your response to this.
So let me just start by saying any diet can look good when you compare it to what you were doing beforehand, right? If you had a bad diet before and you go to a very structured program, and usually during that time comes all these other cares about your health, right? You're like, oh, I'm going to take hydration seriously. Oh, I'm going to start working out. Oh, I'm going to get my diet fixed. Oh, I'm going to meditate and try to reduce my stress. Typically people start these interventions and they start with a lot of pieces that they try to get going. So it doesn't surprise me when anyone makes any claim about literally any diet and they say that they had amazing success with it. And I believe that they did have amazing success with it. So the question though becomes, is the diet optimal? Or, is this, if I put you on a different diet, could I make something better? And I think with the carnivore diet, I could make something better. So one of the big things that's lacking from the carnivore diet is a lot of plant material and fiber products. So the carnivore diet was created by bodybuilders, who were juicing, who were taking testosterone, and they needed to ingest a large amount of nutrients and have it be as bioavailable as possible because they needed to fuel the workouts that they were doing. So that's the origin of the carnivore diet, and that's fine, right? That's fine. That worked for them. That's what they needed. What you see that's missing from the carnivore diet is a lot of this plant and fibrous material. And what that does is that is going to have negative long-term implications on your gut microbiome, because that is what they thrive on. And so the problems I see with people who come off the carnivore diet is they tend to have some GI issues until they can get settled again. So plants are very important. I don't think, there's a lot of, I can find research studies that say bad things about pretty much any claim you want to make, but I think plants is the one thing that I've never seen a bad research study about. Almost everyone agrees that eating plants is a good thing, whether or not you're eating meat or not, not talking about that, just plants in general. And so with the carnivore diet, you're excluding a lot of these types of products, and you're missing out on this fiber, and you're negatively hurting your gut microbiome, which has been shown to be very beneficial for mental health, but also physiological health for a lot of different things. So I think the carnivore diet, if you reintroduce a lot of those plant products, be smart about it, but I think that is something that could be added to the diet to make it even better.
That was very informative. I think the beneficial versus optimal framework is really important to consider as well, and always understanding, where did you come from? What was it, the American diet that you were starting off with and then shifting to the carnivore diet, where you did have all these positive associated behavioral change and even changes in how you think about food that may have led to some of the changes that you're feeling. And then I do think always introducing some plants or some vegetables in your diet is helpful, and I'm glad that hopefully, Kim-sen, you learned a little bit about that and have a good few next steps to take.
I'm on board with, if she wants to email me too, by the way, I can talk more at length about it. I just need to work a little bit short on too.
Right, for sure. And so another question, and pretty short. Thoughts on sea moss? I mean, it looks cool.
Sea moss. So I know some people are taking chlorophyll. Is that what we're trying to get at here? We're just talking about like sea plants. Sea plants are fine. You should eat them. They're good for you. Seaweed's a good thing. Nori, seaweed, all that stuff has been shown to be beneficial and helpful. I'm not aware of any data that convincingly shows that acutely supplementing with this stuff is going to boost metrics that gamers care about. But that's fine if you want to eat it. And if you are talking about chlorophyll, that's maybe a different discussion, and we could get into that.
Right. pretty general, so it's hard to get to some specifics relating to that question. But I guess the last question is, any tips for diabetes type 2? I mean, I think it would require a more, I guess, a well thought out evaluation to be able to provide you with some better tips. But are there any things that you might recommend as really basic things to look at?
Yeah. So this is a tough one, but yes, there are some things to look at. So number one thing is uncontrolled diabetes is absolutely terrible for the brain as well as the rest of the body. Unchecked, that's going to lead to things like amputations and all sorts of apathies. You don't want any of that. And as a gamer, you don't want to be hindered by this, right? So making sure you're taking your medications as prescribed and you're checking your blood sugar values, pretty regularly. I like to recommend at least like a fasting blood sugar and then like a pre and post around your biggest meal of the day just to see how you're tolerating that. And sometimes it's good to also throw in like a pre-bed blood sugar check as well. But making sure you know how your body responds to different food products. Okay, you only have to do this once. It's pretty easy, right? Like you eat, a plate of pasta, and then you see what your blood sugar is. Okay, well now you know exactly what your blood sugar does in that response, as long as it's like the same time of day. So first thing is medication adherence, right? Classic recommendation, most doctors are going to tell you to lose weight if the cause is because of excessive obesity. That does lead to metabolic syndrome and issues with your blood sugar levels. If it is a genetic condition where you're already at a healthy weight, but you still have type 2 diabetes, that's a little bit more tricky. That kind of sucks. The good recommendation for that might be and this I guess applies to both, is to incorporate some resistance training, because resistance training will upregulate your insulin sensitivity. And if you're doing that at least every other day, that's been shown to help for about 48 hours, you're going to clear out some of that blood sugar that is floating around, which is nice. So weight loss, resistance training, take your medication as prescribed. And then last but not least would be to make sure you're limiting your carb intake at your big meals. I like to say maybe around 45 grams is a good starting point per meal, and try not to go too much higher than that, because your body metabolically is struggling to process those carbs. So try to limit it. It's about 1 cup, just for reference, like 1 cup of some kind of starchy, like rice or pasta or whatever. So about that amount per meal is where I try to cut it. And then if you need to violate this rule, your insulin sensitivity is actually highest at the morning and lowest in the evening. So if you want to, say, shuffle, and this would probably be ideal, you could shuffle that 45 grams of carbs from dinner over to breakfast. You could have, your pancakes and waffles, and then just have, like a protein and veg for dinner, something like that. That will help out as well.
Perfect. What a great overall response, Space Valley. I hope you had the chance to listen to all of that. We have 4 more minutes, but I think this is a really good question, and this really will be the last one. How do I stop over-relying on fast food and fix my diet when I'm not good enough at cooking for me to consistently feel driven to eat what I cook?
So this is probably a larger cultural, societal issue than maybe it seems like on the surface, which is simply they have teams of PhDs, literally teams of guys who are like 10 times smarter than I am, who are carefully crafting these fast food products and like candy products and all this stuff to spike reward pathways in your brain and physiologically get you hooked on this stuff. All right, so they have these genius guys who are literally trying to get you hooked on their product, and it works. Okay, and it helps because they put a fast food joint on every single corner. You're probably 5 minutes away from any fast food at any given time. Quick, it's easy, it's cheap, and it's telling you, hey, I feel good when I eat this. So those are big issues, right? And that's hard to overcome. So you say you're struggling with cooking, that's fine. You need to find a replacement then for that. So even at fast food joints, you can find something that works, right? Like, I'm trying to think of some, like Panda Express, you could go for the rice instead of the chow mein. You could order, instead of like the orange chicken, you could get the stuff that's not fried and battered. So even at fast food joints, they usually do have cleaner options, especially with the recent rise in health trends. So even at fast food joints, they do offer healthier options. But there's also stuff at home that you could be doing that requires zero prep work, right? If I buy an apple, I don't have to prep anything from it. I just peel off the sticker and I eat it, right? That's pretty easy. You could get like vegetables and hummus. You could buy jerky. Okay, you could buy a thing of yogurt. You could buy cereal. Cereal's pretty easy, right? You throw in some milk, throw in some cereal, like, and you're good to go. So there are quick and easy options. If you have a little bit of a higher budget, then I might look into some meal preps. You know, maybe you buy a pack of like 7 meal preps in a week, and they're microwavable meals. You heat them up, takes 2 minutes, and those are pretty quality. We'll have some really good ones now. They're like $10 a meal, which is, if you add in the drive time to a fast food joint, it's pretty much the same price anyway that you'd be paying at fast food. So
right.
Why not get something that's healthy and it's going to taste better? Anyway, so you have options available to you. You just have to be willing to try them out. And not every single one of them is going to work out for you. Maybe you hate apples. I don't know. But there's probably a piece of fruit that you like that you could enjoy. That's a snack. There's probably a healthier option, that you could get at your fast food joint. And, definitely take a look at meal preps. But one other final thing is, if you suck at cooking, why don't you just practice and try some recipes and things like that? Because you're going to be eating for the rest of your life. So it's a skill that helps you out. You're going to have to learn how to do it eventually. So might as well, just try, burn the kitchen a couple times, but eventually you'll figure something out that you like.
It's worth it. It absolutely is worth it. 100%. I think that's a great place where we can stop. I always ask this question at the very end, but if you could snap your fingers and instantly change something like Thanos in the esports community, what would it be?
That I could be ranked challenger and crush all my friends. No.
Oh, nice.
No. For me, I think really probably if esports in general could adopt, this is kind of my big goal and my big passion is I want esports to adopt a true infrastructure that we have similar to traditional sports. It's a serious sport. I want it to be taken seriously. More people tuned in to watch like the League World Championships than the corresponding Super Bowl, NBA Finals, Stanley Cup, World Series, like combined. Okay, so like people are tuning into this stuff, people are caring about it, but they're not taking care of themselves in quite the same way yet. If we had a way to standardize it, and so I think we could be really rocking and rolling. I don't think it's possible, but you said I could be Thanos and snap my fingers. But like publisher rights and things like that, that's probably going to get in the way. But I really just want to see that structure that can drive peak performance. I want to see better competitions. I want to see players play at their peak. I want there to be like sports medicine room right next to the gamers, right? Like I want them to be there at their training facility where sports medicine is right there. I want there to be testing. Okay, I want hydration testing. I want blood work. I want body comps. I want performance testing. I want a data analytics guy who can run the numbers and see what works. I want to be there. I want to order your pre-game meals. I want to order your post-game meals. I want custom smoothies based off of the training that you did the day. I want individualized supplement stacks. Like I want all this stuff, and it's not there yet. We're still in its infancy, but I think at the same time that's exciting because there's a lot of room for growth, and I just want to help it get there. So that's probably what I want.
That is the dream. That is definitely the dream, and I'll keep snapping, hoping that it will happen. But we're gonna get there. We're gonna work as much as we can to establish that infrastructure and build it to a point where it does become normal to have this full interdisciplinary team on staff. But I want to thank everyone for attending. Definitely want to thank Casey for taking the time to explain in depth all these different topics relating to nutrition, cognitive function optimization, hydration, creatine, and then even getting to some of these answers in the chat for just joining on. And then if you guys want to just welcome him formally to the 1HP team, let him know in the chat, celebrate, follow him on Twitter, follow him through all his resources. We're going to be linking that in the description. And then just for everyone, what is your Twitter?
Don't have that.
Okay, he's gonna
have old school. Sorry.
He may have one very soon. Then.
Yeah, I might have one.
But we will be linking a lot of his resources in the description. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and we will probably be back for another time for advanced considerations with nutrition. Bye bye.
I had a blast. Thanks for having me.
Awesome.